Hey fellas, hey, how's it going? Welcome everybody back to the fourth.
Someone scored.
Right on. No, so
Wasn't Toronto.
Thank you.
You scored?
yeah, no, it's Budweiser every night at 7:00 as a thank you to all the nurses, doctors, and first responders, cops, all that. Every night at 7:00, the horn goes off. So a thank you.
Nice.
What are you doing with your finger, bud? What is that?
Attaboy. I know what it is.
Some Montreal Canadiens crap, I'm sure. Welcome everybody to the fourth episode. Jesus, we're off script right off the bat. So the fourth episode. Thank you everybody that's been watching and have subscribed to the YouTube channel so far, and for the good comments. It makes us feel well. Makes us feel good. Ryan's been nervous as hell over the last couple of days, wondering if people actually like him. So it's good to read those comments. So as we do every episode, I'll start with an intro. We've got Ryan slumming it down in southern Nova Scotia. We got Mark hanging out up in the beautiful Ottawa Valley. We got Dave kicking it up in Kincardine, and fucking Phil looking as greasy as ever down in Oshawa. But today we've got another very special guest with a lot of knowledge, and that's Mr. Bill Kennedy from Cedar Ridge Retrievers. So for those that follow the Punisher social media page, you'll know that Bill and I have been doing a fair amount of training together, and that's where I bought my puppy Lander from Bill from last summer on a litter that he had. So very, very happy to have Bill joining us today. And before we get to it, I just want to touch on his resume, for lack of a better word.
Go easy there, though, Damien. Go easy, buddy.
Well, I kind of cut her back. So just listen to this impressive resume. So, past president of the National Retriever Club of Canada, past president of the Eastern Ontario Retriever Club, Canadian Kennel Club life member, past member of the Canadian Kennel Club Retriever Council, part of the committee that implemented the first retriever hunt test rules and regulations, he has been judging field trials since 1983, and he guesses, but this is only an estimate, but over 100 licensed trials judged so far in Canada. He's judged 38 American Kennel Club field trials in the USA, has had 2 National Open Retriever Trial finalists and 1 National Amateur finalist. Like I said, I could have went on further, but at this point, I think you're just showing off, and I think everybody gets the point that you're coming with a wealth of knowledge in the dog training world. So I guess we'll get right to it. So I know the boys all have a ton of questions that they want to ask. So I just wanted to get one out right off the bat, and that is, I know you spend a fair amount of time while your summer is completely full when it comes to the field trials and all that. So with the whole COVID thing and social distancing, what is happening with, the local regional events and then the national championship and the amateur and the open and all of that? What's going on this year for testing?
It's all gone to hell. It's all gone to hell, and I mean it's all gone to hell. Not just locally, but nationwide, and the same in the U.S. I think since the lockdown the middle of March, they've had one competition in the U.S., and that was in Georgia on some private land. But Canada's canceled their national open and the national amateur. All the retriever trials, British Columbia, the Prairie provinces here in Ontario, and the hunt tests, pardon me, have all been canceled. They're looking at maybe August 1st weekend having a competition, depending upon the regulations, rules that the province is going to put out. It looks like that may be the first one here in Ontario, be the August 1st weekend. So it's gone to hell. Typically in the U.S., there's at least one every weekend, starting first weekend in February, and it goes straight right through till the first weekend in December. And of course, you can imagine the size of the U.S. and the size of Canada. There's lots of weekends where there's trials all over the country, here and there. So anyway, yeah, it's gone to hell.
So without me knowing too much, but if your first competition is looking to happen in August, does this affect, you know, the standings? And like, do you have to qualify to go into the championships? Like, is it a point basis and stuff?
Yeah, well, it's in the U.S. it's a little different than Canada, but still the same thing. But yes, you do have to qualify. But when they canceled the national events, they said if you were qualified for this year's national, you're going to be qualified for next year's national.
Okay.
So they kind of waived that and just put it off.
Okay. Boys, go for it.
No, I got a question there for Bill. No, a lot of the newer guys, and even say some of the seasoned dog trainers and handlers and whatnot, to get puppies, say throughout the fall, winter, say even early spring. It seems, at least like from what I've seen from social media as of late, a lot of guys have really been chomping at the bit to get their dogs in the water. Obviously, you know, the weather, like we're in the middle of May and it's still winter. Do you feel that there's any rush to get a puppy into water, or will a good amount of, say, time training on land transition those skills into running, say, water drills?
So not to be a politician, but I'm going to try and answer your question and not skirt around it. But if I don't come right to the point, because it sounded like it was a multi-part question. But a buddy and I, another dog guy and I, we were just talking the other day about the water. And the way it's been cold out now, I would not yet have had my dogs in the water here at home. And so typically we would be 3 to 4 weeks into competitions here in Ontario. And I would not have trained a lick. I probably wouldn't have run any of these early trials.
Yeah.
Just because. Does that answer it? I mean, Damien's been putting some stuff from a guy named Dennis Voigt, pretty good dog trainer, does a lot of articles, has some really great ideas for retriever training. He's had his 10 ideas, or what's that called, Damien? The 10
guidelines to cold water training.
Yeah. Anyway, if you have a look at that, that's really the template you should use if you're training. But I think part of what you asked me, Phil, was should you be training more on land? Well, I think you should be training all the time on land, depending upon the age of your dog and how much you would normally train. But 75% of those skills that your dog's learning on land, you're going to transfer into the water.
You guys hear Bill?
No, I just lost him there for a second.
Yeah, I lost him too.
I heard him.
Oh, did you?
Okay, am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
All right. I think it said something come up about I was muted.
By the host.
Okay, where was I?
That was me. Sorry.
By the host? Thanks.
I'm drunk.
Thanks.
You've heard that before or something? You didn't want to hear it again? What?
No, I'm drunk.
Anyway, big thing for me this time of year, get your dog out, work on those drills, work on those skills that you know you're going to need come duck season. The swimming is going to come. It's starting to warm up today, but let's say you have June, July, and August to work on the swimming. Trust me, plenty of time to get your dog in the water and work on that water stuff, those water retrieves. But right now, if you've got a young dog, now's the time to work out some kinks. Now's the time to work on that obedience, steadiness, and just basic retrieving stuff. And introducing the decoys, all of that stuff. Now's the time to do it.
Yeah, the rule number 8, I think it was, I put out today, that Mr. Voigt had said is the general rule is, well, we'll use Celsius, is 48.9. So the water and the air temperature should equal 48.9 degrees Celsius, and that's a good training. So that's the right environment to be training your dog when it comes to water. So
yeah, it's a good rule. It's a good rule to go with. I also look at how nice out it is. If it's a dirty, cold day, cloudy, rainy, you're not going to put the dog in the water because their house is going to be freezing. But if it was a day like today where it's nice and sunny and warm, you can get them out of the wind. It's totally different. Totally.
So Bill, what does that mean? So you say that on a cold, wet, miserable day, and this is a show about where we're talking to duck hunters that they're looking to put their dog in Lake Ontario in end November, early December, like that. I guess what I'm getting at is you're saying you wouldn't put them in, but they're gun dogs, right? So when it comes to their job,
I'm talking about training.
Yeah. Okay.
May. I'm not talking about October. I mean, they get climatized, right? By the time they've hit that duck hunting time of year, they're used to the water, and that water will get colder and colder and colder, and it doesn't affect most of them. Some of them it does, but most of them it doesn't affect.
Yeah.
And I think one of Dennis's points in that little list of his is it's totally different to be throwing a plastic bumper in the springtime in the cold water than it is a fresh, hot shot floating up in the water mallard sitting out there in the decoys. It's a totally different set of circumstances for the dog.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Ryan, I think I cut you off there, buddy.
No, you didn't at all. But I got a question for Bill. Just self-training is really popular, probably in the last, I'd probably say 5-7 years. I know my last dog, I self-trained. I was fortunate enough to have a couple buddies who had already trained multiple dogs. So I kind of jumped on their coattails as far as training regime, and YouTube's a good, there's lots of good information on YouTube and stuff like that. But for somebody who's just kind of like, overloaded by all the avenues of information in that topic, what's the, I guess a 2-part question would be, what's your best piece of advice for somebody who wants to get into self-training? And on the other side of the coin, what's the most common mistake you see a lot of, inexperienced handlers make?
So if you're that inexperienced handler question, that part of it, are you talking about with a young dog? Are you talking about with an old dog?
I'd say a young dog, because we're usually self-training. You should be starting right from a puppy up, right? So
yeah. So I'll give you a great story. A guy's name, I'm sure you won't mind me talking about him, Louis Nadeau. I think you know Louis, don't you,
Yeah.
Damien?
Yeah.
So Louis comes to me. He was recommended by a friend of mine. Anyway, Louis comes to me. He's got I'll say 3-month-old yellow lab rescue dog. He has no idea where this pup came from, just that he got it from some woman somewhere that wasn't going to look after it. So 0 history in terms of its pedigree. We always called him show puppy. He was a big, blocky, good-looking dog. But Louis brings him here to me, and he had a video that he'd been watching, and he was following this video religiously. And the dog had 0 intensity, no prey drive whatsoever. So I watched Louis with it, and I'm thinking, Louis, what have you been doing? He said, well, I'm watching the video. So, oh my God, lighten up. You got to make life fun for it. And I think that's probably the biggest mistake guys make with a young puppy is they're not trying to bring out that dog's natural prey drive or desire to retrieve. They're more interested in obedience. And don't get me wrong, down the road, obedience is a huge thing for a duck dog, pheasant dog, any dog, your house dog. Obedience is a big thing. But when they're young, you want to bring out that desire to retrieve. That's the key in my world.
So I got to hunt with Louis' dog Timber there.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
Yeah, the first time I ever met Louis and Timber, was at the very first Punisher waterfowl camp. And
Excellent.
Timber, we shot a duck, and it was pretty far away, and Louis sent the dog, and Timber runs, gets to it, and just kind of stands over it and growls at the duck before it picks it up, like basically saying, "You're mine," and grabbed it, and then came right back to us, the happiest dog ever. Timber's a great dog.
Yeah. Timber was a real. Timber and Louis were a project, very similar to Damien and Lander. But they're both are a project, and I think Timber's on the injury reserve list now. He's got a bad shoulder or something, but he turned out to be a really very good dog, and Louis ended up being a very good student as well. So
Yeah,
I
just
like
as much
Louis
work with me, buddy.
Yeah, well, jury's out, buddy. How's that go? Jury's out with you?
Yeah.
Louis came out at a very first hunt test he went to with Timber, and so because he wasn't registered, he couldn't compete, but he came out and ran a test dog for us. By far a star. He was the star of the whole weekend. It was a good job by Louis and Timber. So anyway. And I know I only answered, Ryan, half your question. So if you can remember, give me the other half.
I didn't write it down. I don't know. No, I guess what would be your best piece of advice for somebody getting into it, like just who wanted to start to self-train?
Find
somebody
that has a pretty good idea of what they're doing, and hang out and throw marks for your dog. That's the best thing to do, is find somebody, a local club. People will know, like you guys know people, right? You know hunting people. You guys know people with dogs, whether they're with retrievers. Find somebody and hook up with them and get out and pay attention and train. You can't have a dog that you bring out on Saturday for a half an hour and throw a tennis ball around for him and expect that dog to sit quietly in the blind and go 150 yards to pick up that cripple come November. You just can't. You got to get out and work. It's like if you're going to run a marathon, you just don't show up that day with your black shiny dress shoes on and a pair of old basketball shorts and say, "Hey, I can go do this." I mean, you have to train for it.
So. Yeah, and I guess I wanted to. There was one thing that I was going to mention too, Bill, and Ryan sort of touched on it. But if you remember when I got Lander, and I had brought her home, my expectations of Lander, like I don't know, how old was she when I brought her home, and I was throwing the paint roller, and she wouldn't pick it up, and I'm calling you, I'm like, the dog won't retrieve, and you were like, Damien, like she's
go down,
like, relax. But
day one.
Yeah. And I was worried, but I wish you guys could see. I don't know. I would hazard to say there's not many dogs that got the drive that Lander has, Bill?
Yeah, well, I offered to buy her from Damien. Yeah. Of course, you can imagine Trish put the kibosh on that. So I like telling the story, guys. I went out duck hunting with my guy I grew up with. And I had heard stories about a dog that my dad and my grandfather had duck hunted with. Spike was his name. He was a great, great dog, so everybody said. Anyway, I go duck hunting on Wolf Island, Kingston, out Lake Ontario, with my buddy, and he's got a Chesapeake. And this thing, as soon as the gun went off, he is out of the boat. We're in the marsh. He's out of the boat swimming, and out he goes and picks up this coot that Howie had shot. I mean, it was a slow day. Anyway, he brings back the coot. I went, you know what? I got to get one of those because that's fantastic. We're not rolling the boat out there. We're not getting wet. There's no chest weight or hip weight or stuff. I got to get one of those. So Howie tells me, go see my buddy. I go and see his buddy. He's got a litter of dogs. It was a Chesapeake litter. I said, I want a dog. So sure enough, he gets me a puppy. It's 7 weeks old. I go pick it up. And the guy, Jack was his name, says, so see you next week, Bill? I said, for what? He goes, well, we got to train. I said, seriously? Like, do they not just do this? What do you mean I have to trade? He goes, oh, you idiot. Yeah, come on out next week. So we're throwing wing clip pigeons and doing the stuff up and down the hallway with the paint roller and all that. And I'm saying, wow, you know, this little dog I had, you know, she retrieved like a fool. Anyway, continued. And then the bug bit. And that was 1980. And I mean, I haven't looked back since, but I can remember I just laughed my ass off. What? You got to train? I'd never heard of training stuff. I thought they just did it. So they don't just do it.
No, not
So
at
on
all.
that, is there
Pardon
such
me?
thing as a dog that's too stubborn or untrainable?
Sorry,
So
say that again, Dave.
Is there such thing as a dog that's too stubborn to train? Like, for example, my dog, I'm lucky with her that she likes the whole retrieving side of it, but in the house, you can't train her to be a house dog very well. She likes to do her own thing and get into the cat litter. So no matter how many times the wife yells at her, she still goes for that cat.
She get that stuff stuck in her teeth.
Oh God. It's a German wire hair, so she gets cat litter stuck in her friggin' beard.
Oh,
It's gross.
disgusting. So pointing dog, German wire haired, like I don't have a lot of experience with pointing dogs, but I can tell you dogs in general, a lot of it has to do with their owner. So it's a good thing you're a long ways away, Dave, but a lot of it has to do with their owner and what boundaries or restrictions you put on those dogs at an early age, right? They're like kids. If you let your kid do anything and everything, you know what? It's going to do anything and everything, and then you're going to ask it to do something, and it goes, yeah, whatever, Dad. Take a hike. Well, a lot of it starts at an early age where you've got to teach them how to learn things, and you've got to set boundaries and restrictions for them, like kitty litter.
Yeah, I find she's more like a toddler. Like you can tell her, and then she'll kind of stay away, but then she knows that you're watching. And the second she thinks you're not looking, then she'll go after it. And
that's scallywag.
Sometimes I think she's smarter than me. It's probably that.
Well, you said something about too stubborn. I don't think they're too stubborn. I think some of them are smart.
I think that's a lot. Yeah.
They're just smart. And so it's what was the analogy I used there, Damien, the other day with you? I said sometimes you just have to modify the way you teach or train. Mm-hmm. Each dog. Like every dog is different. I've got a 6-7 month old Labrador now, and I say he's lazy. He's just not motivated enough. He's on the dog bed last night chewing on a bone. The bone falls off, rolls about 2 feet in front of him. And he just stood there and stared at it. My other dog, if that had happened, man, boom, she'd have been on it in a heartbeat. He was just kind of looking at it like he was willing it to come back to him. Finally, he gets up, rolls off, shimmies over, picks it up, comes back, lays back down again. He's just lazy. So his training is going to be a little bit different method than Damien's dog, the fire-breathing heathen, right? Just a little bit different. Every dog's different.
Yeah, and that's exactly it.
Into that cookie cutter mold and say they have to do A, B, and C by the time they're this old, like that's not fair to the dog, and that I would not think that that's the sign of a good trainer that does that. Everybody's different. Everybody. I was talking about that analogy, right? You every fish can swim, and every bird can fly. But if you try and teach the fish to fly, it's not going to be successful, right? You just have to modify your training and try and bring out the best in that dog for what you want it to do and what it's capable of doing.
Yeah, and I haven't like obviously the only bit of time I've spent around an actual dog trainer is since I've had Lander, right? But this isn't just there's a fair amount of thought and I call it science that goes behind this, because I can remember you saying to me, like, why are you doing that? And I'm like, well, I'm doing it because of this. And you're like, but why? Like, she's not going to, you do not want her to do that when she's a year old and you're in the boat. Why are you doing these things now with her as a puppy? And it was just the thought process that goes behind training the dog and making sure. I remember saying to you, well, I don't need Lander to do 300-yard retrieves. She's going to be in the boat with me. And you said to me, well, if we're training, why wouldn't you train her to do 300-yard retrieves? If you're already in the field, if you're doing 50-yard retrieves, why wouldn't you do 300-yard retrieves? If the dog can do it. So
it's gonna make that 50-yard retrieve so simple. So simple.
Not just that, but if you're hunting in a boat and you hit a bird at 50 yards and it's crippled on a
Yeah.
lake, well, very quickly that 50-yard retrieve can turn into a 300-yard retrieve.
Absolutely.
That bird hits the water, sails a bit, and can swim. I've seen it
And
happen.
if it's
So
if it's a hen whistler that keeps diving
Yeah.
and then reappearing another 20 yards away, and now you can't get your dog back, and it's going with the current on the St. Lawrence heading towards the International Rift, maybe that's happened to me. And you think, my good Lord, I'll never see the dog again. But they go that far. You train them, they'll go that far. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a great analogy, though, Ryan.
I mean, me and Mark were hunting in the Ottawa Valley in Cobden once, and we were running my buddy's dog, and I hit a pintail, and we had a really strong wind that day. Mark probably had a 50-kilometer-an-hour wind, and I hit it at probably 30 yards, and then it probably landed at 50, 60 by the time it hit the water, and by the time the dog had gotten to it, it was probably drifted out to about 150. So we couldn't believe how fast, and it was dead, but I mean, just with the wind alone, we couldn't believe how fast that bird had pushed out into the water.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
should have been a basic 30, 40-yard retrieve, right? And it turns into 150 yards in a heartbeat. So if you don't have a dog that's used to going that distance, right, his focus can get there, or you can handle there, then what do you do? Depends on where you are, right? If you're either getting in the boat and going out, or you're looking, waving bye-bye to that bird because it's lost.
In that same
And of
lake
course,
on
we're
another day.
including that in our bag limit, right?
Hey, fellas, keep talking. I got to step away.
So in that same lake on another day, I did a 400-yard retrieve. Ryan was there.
Yeah. Didn't even have to hit the e-collar. He was on a deadline the whole time.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good thing the
Phil,
lake
how's
was
that
shallow.
cigar?
Delicious.
I got a question for you, Bill.
Okay.
I don't know how often, and I'm not fully educated on how you do your job now, but how often do you take on projects where dogs are older than 3, and
That's a good
people
question.
have already tried training them, but they have a bunch of bad habits? Do you ever take on those kind of projects?
Well, so I don't do this, like I don't take in somebody's dog and do that.
Okay.
What I do is say, hey, Mark, bring your dog over. Let's see what it's doing. And I'm going to help you get over that hurdle or help you make your dog better. But
Oh, yeah.
this isn't something I do for a living. This is totally a recreational sport, one of those, I don't know what you'd call it, an addiction sometimes, I think. But I had a person come by last fall who had an older dog, and probably 3, and had trouble picking up or carrying a goose. So first thing I ask is it force fetched? And this person just kind of looked at me, rolled their eyes, and went, "What do you mean?" It's okay. So we go back, and I showed them how to teach the dog hold, and then teach it some force fetch stuff, and then how to carry around something as big as a goose. And they tell me that it worked it out, and the dog now retrieves a goose to their satisfaction. And that was in probably twice a week over a 3-week period. We worked through that. But that's what I recommend. Like, that's how Louis and Timber came to me, right? I just said, Louis, you're going to do 99% of the work here. I'm going to show you stuff to do, and we'll work through it. I'll give you some advice. I'll help you out with it, and we'll get the dog going in that respect. It's not uncommon, though, Mark, to have that 3-year-old dog and have it change the way it's been working and get it over that hurdle, whatever it may be, sitting on a whistle, steadiness, dropping birds, all that kind of stuff. They're relatively easy fixes.
Bill, would you say that's probably, I know at least it was for me when I was self-training my dog, but would force fetching be probably the most intimidating part of the training regime for like a new handler?
Oh, hell yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
hell yes.
It was for me for sure.
It's easy peasy to go out in the field and throw some stuff and watch the dog go get it and blow the whistle, have it come back. You're right. But it's the basis. Force training is the basis of going forward. And I know lots of people that have never force fetched their dog, and their dog out and picked up the birds and came back adequate for what they wanted. But I'm not a fan, or I'm not a fan. I'm not a believer that you will get your dog to a high performing level without force fetch.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because like I've hunted over dogs, lots of different dogs of different breeds and everything, and it's very easy to tell just after a couple reps. You can tell if a dog has been force fetched or not. And to me, I think it's an absolute necessity. Although it's like intimidating, but it's an absolute necessity in the training regime. But I mean, I think it's easy to tell. But yeah, it's for me, it was by far the most. I was so worried I was gonna do something to mess my dog up, you know, like. But
well, you know what? That a lot of that is because you've heard so much of the horrors in the past that have happened with force fetch and guys not doing it right, and it just can become a gong show.
Yeah.
And so, I'll talk about me. I kept thinking, geez, I don't know. My first couple of dogs, I sent them to somebody to do the force fetch, and I would go over and watch and think, holy Jesus, really? But then I started doing it myself, and it really isn't that big a deal. But you need to keep up the speed and be doing it to be proficient at it. And anyway, one of the things with Lander, I can remember talking to Damien and telling him the biggest hurdle in the hold aspect of it, where you're teaching the dog to hang on, is hanging on to that bumper or the bird coming out of the water. Because the natural tendency, of course, is to shake, and they don't want to shake with something in their head or in their mouth, right? Flipping them, flopping them. But once you've got the dog coming out of the water, holding that bird and coming up to you, sitting down, and even shaking with it in their mouth and hanging onto it, you know the force fetch was successful, right?
Yep.
And that's pretty much where Lander is now, right, Damien? I mean,
Yeah.
You let her away with throwing birds or bumpers at you, but she's pretty good coming out of the water and stuff with the birds in her mouth. And
yeah,
and,
but
and
one thing that you had said,
comes
Bill,
back to duck hunting.
Yeah. One thing you had said, Bill, though, the force fetch is needed in order to carry on to, say, the pile drill, right? And then
It's the basis. Yeah, it's the basis of everything you're going to do in terms of getting your dog to stop and to handle and to go on blinds. Your dog may have tons of desire, may just want to go naturally, but that force fetch stuff is the first step in that chain of events that's going to happen to get your dog running hard, stopping, casting, doing all that stuff. That looks pretty cool.
Philly, you got anything else, buddy?
Yeah, actually, I got a question, Bill, in regards to, say, training programs. Like I've gone through it now with Thor. Now, as we know, there's a number of programs out there: Lardy, Hillman, Graham, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel you should pick one program and push your dog through it, or would it be better to cater, say, one or two programs to your dog itself to be more successful?
Well, I think it goes back to where I said every dog is different.
Yeah.
Right. And you have to find something that works for you and your dog. There may be things in Lardy's program or things in Danny Farmer's program or things in Jason Baker is a big young dog trainer right now. They may do things that don't fit with your lifestyle and certainly don't fit with your dog. So you have to find something. And it may be from watching Farmer's video on basics and Hillman's video on basics that you see something, you go, you know what? I like the way Farmer does this. And I like the way Lardy did that, but I really like Hillman's thing here with another aspect. So absolutely nothing wrong as long as those programs are all the same basis: force fetch, force to a pile, stopping on a whistle, all obedience, color conditioning. As long as they follow, you have to look at their flow charts. As long as they follow the same sort of thing, then I don't think you can go wrong with picking and choosing some aspect. But again, it's got to fit. It's got to be something that you're comfortable doing or not doing that you want to change.
Like when I first started out with Thor, like he's 8 now. All I heard, and obviously I more or less got into this from Andrew Lowell's, which is how I met you. And he pushed Lardy, And I heard from a ton of people, Lardy. So I'm like, okay, like this is like the Bible. And I got a hold of some of the videos and I watched them and I'm like, I can't do this. Like it was like way over my head. So I actually got a copy of Farmer's the Retriever Basics. I think it's like a two DVD thing that they put in conjunction with like Avery. And I did the first half of my training using those. And then I went to Evan Graham's transition stuff. And I found basically mending those two programs together worked like head over heels for me. Like I was fortunate enough, I trained Thor completely on my own. I was a member of the Lake Ontario HRC. As you know, I trained a number of days with...
I think you sat in my garage one night and had a beer, didn't you?
Maybe two. And I took Thor to an HRCH title. Like it's completely attainable. You put in the time and you'll get there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you know what I'm talking about then. There's things in that Lardy video that you just couldn't do. And maybe because of work or other circumstances you couldn't do, but stuff from the Farmer one that worked and stuff from Evan Graham that worked. So do it. It's what you need to do to get your dog through to the final goal, I guess you'd say. There's lots of stuff I like that Farmer does, and there's lots of stuff I like that Lardy does. So.
Yeah. And like one thing I found too, like in Thor, like he's been a great dog to train and work with, and a number of guys can vouch for his hunting ability. But like cooler heads always prevail, right? If you two are knocking heads, couple fun bumpers, call it a day, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's one of the biggest things, is not to lose your temper with them, because nobody gets anywhere, particularly the dog. Don't lose your cool. Chuck him in the crate, put him in the kennel, let him veg out, crack a pint, do whatever it is you need to do to relax. And you know what? Tomorrow, back at it.
And I think you can agree, like that's the fastest way that you can probably hurt a dog, right? Is, knocking heads, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Keeping your cool is the biggest thing. They're only a dog, right? There was an old pro from a long time ago, late 70s, early 80s, and he said to me, Billy, they have a brain the size of a walnut, and they don't use all of that walnut size thing at once. So you know what? You just have to take it slow with them. Teaching is the biggest thing. Teach them, show them, and then expect it.
And praise the living hell out of them.
Yeah, sometimes praise when they do it right for what you want. So Damien's dog, we're doing some work with her. She, like in her collar conditioning, a lot of praise isn't good if they've sat. Say you tell the dog to sit and it gives you kind of a slow ass, puts its butt down like to a 3 count, and you say, good dog. Well, the dog goes, okay, there's our standard, right?
Sloppy sits it is, right?
Yep, that's our standard. I got a good dog out of that. So if you say good dog to that, you're going to get that shit. But if you demand that when I say sit or hit the whistle, the dog's ass hits the ground, you go, good. That's what I wanted. There's your standard. And then it's up to you to maintain it. So agree, praise, but praise at the right time, right?
Yeah.
It's not, you don't want the soccer trophy kind of praise where, my good God, look at that. You sat eventually, good dog. Like, you know what? You know what?
Everyone's a winner.
Participation award.
Everybody gets a trophy. Yeah. Yeah, we don't
Dave,
want that. We don't want that in retriever training.
Dave, got anything else?
No, buddy, no.
Ryan?
This has been good.
No, this has been awesome.
Mark?
Good.
So now, Bill, for the people that don't know you, and we didn't really get too much into this, so I keep plugging. We've brought on that you are the owner of Cedar Ridge Retrievers. I've got my puppy from you. I've had people come to me and say, hey, where did you get your puppy? Are you breeding dogs? And I know you touched on it a little bit with Mark's question, but can you just elaborate? Are you breeding dogs and are you training dogs, like taking in clients, and just so the people, I don't get 5 million messages, which would be awesome if 5 million people message me after watching this. But could you just talk a little bit about what you're doing right now?
So kind of like Phil can talk about it, you can talk about it. Andrew came to me, Louis came to me, just word of mouth stuff, because I was part of the Retriever Club. And they had some questions. And so I said, hey, come on out. You help me, I'll help you. So these guys threw marks for my dog. I helped them with theirs. And that's kind of the saw off there is, if you want to come out, spend some time, I'll help you. As long as you're willing to spend some time helping me with my dogs. So occasionally, I'll go back, Damien, to answer your question. Yeah, I have a litter every now and then. I had a litter last year. Maybe next year have another litter. It's a ton of work for me in my present situation, because I like competing with the dogs. I'm on the road a lot in the summertime during trial season. I head south and go to the Retriever boot camp in the wintertime down in the Carolinas. So it's a busy time, or it's a busy life that I have, and it's really very busy to have a litter of pups, because that takes up almost 3 months from the time you're doing the breeding and getting everything ready until they're 7-8 weeks old and out the door. So it's a lot of work, right?
Last point.
If there's somebody around, like Mark, sounds to me, Mark, like you've got an older dog that you're looking to maybe improve on some of its habits. So if you were in the Kingston area, you know what, I'd say, hey, come on out. Come on out, let's have a look. I'll give you a hand. There you go. Now, here, take these birds and go throw some marks for my dog. Marks being birds in the area. Help me out. You help me train mine, and I'll certainly help you train yours.
The other point, and I was guilty of it before I had bought Lander, and I remember talking to you when Sniper was pregnant and getting ready to have her litter, and I had said I'm too busy, I can't train a dog. And I think I thought that dog training required hours upon hours every day, and that is not even close to the case. You and I, we spend more time chatting over coffee than we do when it comes to training dogs. Like, we'll train 2-3 dogs in the morning, and we may spend 20 minutes to a half hour. A half hour is a long time on a dog, but 20 minutes to a dog per day. And then, well, you know, you got other little bits that you'll do at home, but it doesn't take a huge time commitment, is what I'm saying.
Not right now, not at this stage. Once you get into the water, and it depends on what level you're training at, but you know, you'll have a 35-40 minute test for that open all age field trial retriever. And if you've got 4 dogs, you picture 35 minutes for 4 dogs takes a long time to get that training in. But at the stage that your dog is at and the couple that I have are at, you know what? It's easy peasy. Come in, shoot the shit, like you said, talk about some theories, talk about what you should be doing after you leave my place, and we go throw some birds. Yeah. Setup and tearing down the setup is probably more time than actual getting your dog and running it.
Yeah, for sure. Bill, like this has been awesome, and as always, it's a ton of information for me, and I love it. I try to soak up as much as I can, and I wish I was as good a student as what Lander was, but I think you spend more time working on me than you do the dog. But I can't thank you enough for doing this. And I know the boys were pretty happy to know that you were coming on. So again, I can't wait to get back out and doing some training. Lander's injury looks like it's coming along. So Monday we should be back to chucking birds and carrying on.
Tuesday.
Oh, Tuesday. Monday's a
holiday.
That's right.
It's a holiday.
So
one last recommendation.
Yeah.
Nutrition. Right now there's a big push on about conditioning your dog and nutrition. So there's been some seminars down in the US with some very well-known retriever trainers and well-known veterinarians, and they talk about the value of conditioning and the value of nutrition. So if you're going to feed your dog, don't go to Walmart, don't feed old Roy, don't go to Costco and feed the food at Costco. Pick a high quality, spend some money, high quality, high protein, high fat, feed your dog that. And feed them that 365 days of the year, not just the week before duck season.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's like you going out to run that marathon and thinking, you know what, I think I'll have a steak today. It'll be good for me. Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Nutrition.
That's like Damien. He runs McDonald's all year round, and look at him.
Yeah, that's right. Athlete. Awesome. So with that, everybody, so as usual, so we'll talk about I really spent a lot of time trying to figure out who the winner of the week is this week. And I really don't know what I should do. So I'm really going to go, because I can't get it out of my mind, is these goddamn murder hornets.
Yes.
Good Lord.
Like, first off, who came up with the fucking name Murder Hornets?
Did you see the one about they're calling them Baskin bees?
Baskin bees?
There's a picture
from the Tiger King?
There's a picture of Tiger King, and it says,
That's great.
That is awesome.
With a Carol fucking Baskin.
Yeah.
But, like, just when 2020 just, keeps, like, taking its thumb and pushing down on your head, and COVID, as they say, it looks like we're flattening the curve, and now there's fucking murder hornets. So I have a theory on the murder hornets, and that is, if such a thing exists and it comes and it starts infiltrating Toronto and Vancouver and the big cities, will the
So we should say goodbye to Phil now? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm wondering if it starts affecting all the hippies, will they allow us to overturn the gun ban and have an open season on these fucking things?
And what's the limit?
Oh, no limit, open season, buds.
Are they going to ban them?
Well, well, they could.
Well, I think if
Maybe they'll ban the real hornets.
They
If
can
they
take.
would ban those hornets, that would take care of it.
Yeah,
I think
The Murdering Council, write it up there. What's his name? Your old buddy there, Phil, the chief. He'll get have them draft an ordering council, and away you go.
Oh, Billy Madison.
Billy Blair.
Billy Blair, yeah, your
Billy
old buddy
Blair.
there, Billy Blair.
Billy Madison.
Billy Madison. Awesome. Boys,
Just ban them.
again, awesome show. Again, thanks, Bill, for coming on. Boys, thanks so much for doing this. We went a little bit longer than normal, and I had to rip away to grab my credit card because Zoom will no longer let us have more than 45 minutes on our calls. So I had to upgrade the program. So that's why I had to rip away. So now we have unlimited minutes, so we can go forever now. I just don't know if the audience wants to keep listening to us babble on for too long. Again, guys, thanks so much. It was an awesome show. Lots of information, Bill. Thanks so much.
Thanks, fellas. Good to meet you guys.
With that, everybody, thank you for subscribing, liking, all your comments, all that good stuff. Look forward to seeing you next week. Big love. Stay safe.